This is Matt O'Hearn with Space Coast Daily. I'm here with Orville Susong and Steve Wilson from the Friday Night Locker Room. Gentlemen, let's talk about the big game of the week. We have the Viera Hawks, my number one team, heading to Melbourne to take on the Bulldogs. You were both there on Friday to watch Melbourne take on Bayside. We all know about the Hawks. Orville, what's your outlook for this game?
Well, the Viera Hawks stayed unbeaten last week with a win over Port Orange Atlantic, but most everybody has won over Port Orange Atlantic. The Melbourne Bulldogs, I think, a huge win over the Bayside Bears last week. This is the biggest game of the year, I think, for both teams. It will be the Friday Night Locker Room game of the week, and hopefully Matt O'Hearn from Space Coast Daily can come and watch his number 2 Viera Hawks play the Melbourne Bulldogs. But the Melbourne Bulldogs, Matt, have been giant killers this year. They've beaten 3 undefeated teams. I'm going out on a limb here. The Melbourne Bulldogs will defeat the 4th undefeated team of the season. They will beat the Viera Hawks.
Yeah, you may be right. Although I have Viera ranked number 1, I would not be surprised to see the Bulldogs knock them off. That would be a monumental upset. Steve, what's your outlook on this one?
I think it has all the makings of one of the top games in the county. For the entire year. This will be our 3rd Melbourne Bulldog game that we've covered. Very strong defense, which is what they play every year. Just efficient enough on offense to score points. I like the way Cooper Cristiano for the Bulldogs is controlling the tempo of the game. He's taking care of the football. B.J. Daniels, one of the top running backs in the county. Grant. So the Bulldogs can move the ball. They play great defense. But the Hawks are loaded. I think if you line both teams up, the skill position players, I think the Hawks are a little bit stronger. Trey Nixon, I believe, is going to be the difference. One of the questions Coach Todd Wilson asked me after the game last week was, he said, can we play with Viera? I'm not going to tell you what I told him, but I think they can play with him for 2 quarters, maybe 2.5, 3 quarters, but I think over a 4-quarter football game, Viera is just too talented and they're going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree as far as Nixon being just one of those possible X factors in this game. We all know the Viera Hawks have a very explosive offense, but as Orville mentioned, Melbourne has proven they can take down some of the top teams in the area. Speaking of top teams, Titusville, who I have had in my top 5 throughout the season, they will be taking on the Merredon Mustangs. The Mustangs, Orville, are one of those teams where one week they look like they should be in the top 5, other weeks they look like they may not be worthy of even an honorable mention, but they do seem like they've gained some traction, regotten their footing this point of the season. Do you think the Terriers should be upset about or on alert of what could be an upset?
Well, I think the Titusville Terriers, when Wayne Lawrence and John Wilkinson of the Cocoa Tigers got together and decided that they would play a game when both of them had an off week, it really made a lot of sense for the Titusville Terriers. I think it gave them a surmountable confidence level. Wayne Lawrence got his program going, and from that point they've won 3 consecutive ball games. And remember, call it an upset if you want. I'm not going to call it an upset, but they beat the Palm Bay Pirates. So, I really think that the Titusville Terriers are on a roll. The Merritt Island Mustangs come in. They are 4-2. 2-0 in the district. But you know what? I like Titusville. I think Wayne Lawrence is going to get another win this week.
Yeah, he could very well add a historic win for this program he's been leading for this past 2 years. Steve, do you think Coach Lawrence goes into Merritt Island with the Terriers and comes out a victor?
Oh, that's going to be a good one. Let me think about that. No, I actually think the Mustangs have a chance to win the football game this Friday. Titusville's played great football this year, and I would still call it an upset when they defeated Palm Bay a couple of weeks ago, even though at this point in time I think Titusville's the better team. But for whatever reason, the Mustangs are hitting their stride. They just destroyed what I think is not a bad satellite team. They're not that bad, and they just took them apart 2 weeks ago. I think they're primed for an upset. Orville and I were talking earlier in the week. In that district, I'm telling you, there's going to be a 3-way tie for first when it all shakes out. Palm Bay is going to beat Merritt Island. Merritt Island's going to beat Titusville, and Titusville has already beaten Palm Bay. I had a vision. I dreamed it last week, so I know it's going to happen. You know me and my visions. Visions with the Cocoa Tigers, number 1, which is true.
Okay.
There's no reason this one isn't going to come true. So I'll look for the Mustangs to what I would call an upset Titusville Friday night.
Matt, remember this before. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're taking information from a guy that picked Satellite to beat Merritt Island just 2 weeks ago. So remember that, if you will.
I was going to bring that up.
No, but once again, you're living in the past. We're going to forget what happened 2 weeks ago, but look for the Mustangs to beat the Terriers Friday night. You heard it here first.
Okay, I think the Mustangs have a very good kicker, and it could come down to special teams in this game. I may have to agree with Steve on this one. I could see the Mustangs winning by 3 points, a 17-14 type score, maybe a little bit higher because they both have pretty good offenses. But I truly believe, since the teams are so evenly matched, this could be a game that comes down to a made or missed field goal. Okay, moving on along, we have Space Coast, the Vipers, traveling just up US 1 to take on the number one team in your eyes, the Cocoa Tigers. We all know this is traditionally a pretty big rivalry, so to speak, if you want to call it that, even though Cocoa has proven to be the arch nemesis. Orville, what are some things that Space Coast could try to do to keep this game within reach of with the Cocoa Tigers?
Well, the first thing, Matt, they need to do, you said go north. If they go north, they will not play the Cocoa Tigers because Cocoa is south of Port St. John. So that's the first thing that we've figured out, that also you do not know your directions. But Bayside, I got them all mixed up now. Port St. John, Space Coast Vipers will travel south to Cocoa to take on the Cocoa Tigers. And I don't think that this is going to be a game that, again, John Wilkinson would like to play, but the Tigers haven't played 4 quarters of football consistently yet this season, and I think they start this week. I think it's going to be a big time for the Cocoa Tigers. They'll put a lot of points up on Jake Owen's Space Coast Vipers.
Steve, do you think that when the Vipers travel south on US 1 and show up at Tiger Stadium, do you think that this offense can keep up with Cocoa's all well-known powerful defense?
No, I think Space Coast's best bet is just to keep traveling south, maybe go down to Palm Bay or Bayside, and it's going to get ugly. This is a game that the Tigers look for. They mark it on their schedule because it's what Coach John Wilkinson calls a money game. It's a district game. I don't care what Space Coast's record is. The Tigers are going to be fired up, ready to play. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly in a hurry.
All right, coming up next, we'll be talking about some of the games with the southern teams in the county. This is Matt O'Hearn with Orville Susong and Steve Wilson of the Friday Night Locker Room. We're back, and Orville spent the past 5 minutes showing me a map of Brevard County to make sure I found the games this week. So coming up, guys, we have several games involving teams from the southern part. That's right, the southern part of the county. We have Bayside. They're going to be playing Port St. Lucie, representing Brevard County. Do you think they'll do a good job representing our home area?
Well, you talk about the Bayside Bears, went into Melbourne Bulldog territory last week and lost a huge game, what I think, to the Melbourne Bulldogs. I think Todd Wilson and the Melbourne Bulldogs played great defense. They stopped everything the Bayside Bears were doing, whether it be passing or running. Cooper Cristiano, the quarterback for the Melbourne Bulldogs, kept his team on the ground and in the air only when he had to. I liked what the Melbourne Bulldogs did last week. The Bayside Bears, coming off the loss, I think that they will rebound. I think they'll come up with they'll take their district record to 4-0 this week, and the Bayside Bears will beat Port St. Lucie.
All right, Steve, we know you've been a big fan of what Bayside's been doing this year. Do you see any reason to think they won't continue to roll versus Port St. Lucie?
Well, before we talk about that, let's take a quick poll looking at last week's game, the Bayside-Melbourne game. Did either of the three of us select Melbourne to defeat Bayside? Yeah, I did. So no surprise there. But, yeah, don't listen to what Orville
Matt,
says.
this is the guy that keeps saying he doesn't want to live in the past, and now the first opportunity he gets, he wants to live in the past. Thank you very much.
This is just a few days in the past. This isn't way, way, way off.
So what's the standard after a week?
Oh, yeah. Then we don't talk about it, yeah. But the Bears are going to do fine this week. They're playing a Port St. Lucie team that is average at best. Port St. Lucie lost to Heritage 35-3 2 weeks ago. That should tell you something. I like the Bears, though. They played well last week against Melbourne. A good defense. Austin Everett's a great arm. I would have loved to see him throw the ball a little more downfield than he did against Melbourne. But, when you do that, 2 out of 3 things that happen are bad, so you don't want to do it too many times. But the Bears aren't going to have any trouble at all this week. They will come home with a big win.
Yeah, I agree. And another game we have coming up is the Melbourne Central Catholic Hustlers. They'll be traveling to Winter Park to take on Trinity Prep. I'll just add a little bit of flavor to this story and let you guys know that when MICS used to travel over to play at Trinity Prep, they never wanted us to come back. I'll put it this way. There's probably a poster with my face on it over there, not to let me back on campus with some of the stuff we used to pull over there. They were a hated arch rival. Do you think Melbourne Central Catholic will make us all proud going over to Orlando and taking on Trinity Prep?
Well, first thing, I've seen a poster of your face in the Rockledge Police Department and the post office, so I believe they've put posters in Orlando with your face on it. But the thing I like about MCC, number one, is Brandon Ziarno. I like the two Erdman brothers, and I just think that, and their kicker does a great job. I think MCC, although they lost a big win, 109 points scored in a ball game, you have to consider that they gave up 60 points, 61 points that ball game. I think they get back on track this week. I think it's going to be a close one, but I do like MCC, and I like the kicker for a field goal to win it.
Now, Steve, you were mentioning this could be one of the key matchups in this district. Do you think the Bulldogs can essentially not clinch, but improve their chances of getting that runner-up spot?
Yeah, well, before I tell you my thoughts on that, just want to make you understand, you may not be welcome in Winter Park, but they love you in Vieira. So you do have a home in Brevard County. Don't worry about that. But it's going to be a tough one. I'm telling you, Trinity Prep is very good. If you look at the teams that they played, comparing to the teams that MCC's played, Trinity Prep has won by a little bit more against each team. What does that mean? You know, probably nothing other than it's going to be a very competitive game. But it's going to be at Trinity Prep in Winter Park. I still go back to a few weeks ago. The defense for the Hustlers giving up 63 points against the First Academy. It's a lot of points. Now, I know they played better last week against John Carroll, but this is the game for the runner-up spot. There's no question about it. The First Academy will be the district champion, and whoever wins this game Friday night will be the runner-up. I hate to pick against the Hustlers, but I really think it's going to be a challenge for them to go to Winter Park and come back with a win. I think Trinity Prep will beat MCC.
Well, I'm certainly not going to pick Trinity Prep, so I'm going to go ahead and pick MCC. Another game coming up, we should mention this one. It will be a Thursday night game, Palm Bay versus Astronaut. Also, while we're talking about Thursday night games, that Titusville Merritt Island game we were talking about, that will be on Thursday. Orville, you look at this Astronaut program, it is a far cry from the typical Randy Hallett coach teams that we've seen. Palm Bay, while they're not undefeated, does look like a typical Coach Burke team that we've seen as far as outstanding defense and an offense that is just as deadly. Do you see any reason to think that Palm Bay won't be able to go up there and roll pretty strong against the War Eagles?
No, I don't think so. I think Palm Bay goes into Titusville. You know, there was a Titusville team that beat Palm Bay a couple weeks ago, and that was the Titusville Terriers. The Astronaut War Eagles, being from Titusville, will not be the second team in the season to beat the Palm Bay Pirates. Astronaut beat Rockledge, a game with 2 0-5 teams. Astronaut beat Rockledge for their first win in the season. They took the rest of the week off to get ready for Palm Bay. Palm Bay took a week off to get ready for Astronaut, although they really didn't need it. But I think the Pirates come out with an easy win. You may see some new faces and names in the paper next Saturday about stats and stuff like that. Palm Bay Pirates coach Dan Burke, I think, will get some of the younger guys some playing time.
Yeah, I agree. It should be a pretty easy win for the Pirates, Steve. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. The Palm Bay Pirates haven't played since they lost to Titusville a couple of weeks ago. Probably hasn't been a lot of fun at practice with Coach Dan Burke the last 2 weeks. Sakai Lindsay's going to have a huge game Thursday night, and the Pirates will win big.
All right. Well, coming up, we'll be talking about the beachside teams and teams on the island. We're back. This is Matt O'Hearn with Space Coast Daily. I'm here with Orville Susong and Steve Wilson, two of my old friends from the Friday Night Locker Room. Now we're going to be talking about the beachside games and a game on Merritt Island as well. Okay, gentlemen, we have Atlantic at Cocoa Beach. Orville, the Minutemen have struggled throughout the season, but this looks like it could be their best bet for a win thus far. What's your take on this one?
Well, my first take is I don't appreciate you calling me old. That's the first thing I want to bring.
Longtime friend.
I'll take that. Thank you very much. Class 4A district contest this week for both teams. Port Orange has 1 win this season. Cocoa Beach is 0-6 to start off the season and carry it through midway. This is going to be a tough ball game for either team to put points on the board. So far, neither team has a district win. After Friday night, I'm going to go out on the limb and say the Minutemen will be the first one to have a win this week against those two teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cocoa Beach, although winless, has shown some signs of improvement. I've been able to see them at different points of the season, and while they're not world beaters, they have shown better execution, some better fundamentals, and this is going to be, as they know, their best chance to get a win that they've had this season. They had some really tough opponents there, including Cocoa early on, so they had a pretty tough slate of games there. Steve, do you think Cocoa Beach can pull off their first win?
No, I think you and Orville are both wrong.
Okay. What's new, right?
I would love to say you're both right because whenever the Brevard County teams play the Idaho area teams, we turn into Brevard County homers. But the Minutemen just don't have it this year. They're so young, a new coach, and the Sharks can score some points. They've only won a game, but they're not as bad as people think. I think Atlantic is going to beat Cocoa Beach.
Well, speaking of beachside teams, the Satellite Scorpions, they'll be traveling to Rockledge. Orville, Rockledge is one of those teams, I just saw them on Friday. They have some athletes. It's just not the same type of athletic prowess we became accustomed to seeing in the early 2000s and even up until a few years ago. Satellite, one of Steve's favorites apparently, has shown us that they have a very capable offense. Can Rockledge's defense slow down the Scorpions enough to keep this one close and maybe eke out a win with a field goal?
Well, I still think the Rockledge Raiders bring a good defense to the game. Offense has been questionable all year long. Mike Laskowski, the quarterback for the Rockledge Raiders, has not been consistent enough to put a lot of points into the touchdown area to win ball games. Last week he was able to run a couple times in key situations to get a win on the board. I predicted that they would beat Astronaut and Treasure Coast last week, so I was one for 2 on that deal. They did not beat Astronaut, but it's going to be a tough one for the Rockledge Raiders this week. Satellite took a week off. They had a week to prepare for the Raiders. I think Satellite gets a win.
Okay. Steve, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think Orville's right. I think the Scorps are going to win the football game. What happened to them against Merritt Island a few weeks ago was an anomaly. It just, the sun, moon, stars aligned in that quirky way. Satellite is much better than they showed a couple of weeks ago. And Orville's right. They have the extra week to prepare. I think Satellite will win the football game.
And before we move on to the next game, I would just like to say I had a chance to catch up with Rockledge Athletic Director Benita Holland at the game on Friday. She will be retiring at the end of this year, and we've seen her there she's been at Rockledge for 36 years, so we wish her the best as she moves on to retirement. It's definitely well-deserved. We all know how hard she's worked over the past 3 decades. And then finally, the final game on our schedule here, we have MICS. They'll be traveling to play at Faith Christian. MICS is coming off its first win of the year. I was unable to make it to the alumni breakfast, but I imagine there were a lot of happy alumni over at MICS on Magnolia Avenue. Orville, do you think MICS can continue that positive momentum, or do you think they'll hit a speed bump versus Faith Christian?
Well, David Nevad has done a lot of things at Merritt Island Christian this year. I think they started out taking baby steps. They lost a few games, and then the first step they made was they scored 16 points in one ball game, which was a huge thing for them. Really, it was. The next step they took is they actually won a ball game. So now I think they take a third step, and they beat Faith Christian. I'm going to give David Nevad and the Cougars the nod this week. I think that they're going to beat Faith Christian, and then they'll get their second win of the year, and that will be their third win in 2 seasons. I like the Cougars this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think with this squad, just getting that confidence of first getting those points, as you said. And Steve, we all know how getting that first win can be so crucial. I think they can turn that into another win, although it won't be easy. Do you agree?
I agree, but I'm sorry you missed the alumni breakfast. I understand you were having breakfast with Coach Mays, head coach of the Vieira Hawks that morning. Good for you. Coach Mays is a good guy, and I know y'all are tight. But I like the Cougars. They scored 16 points 2 weeks ago. They won a game last Friday. I think they're going to win again this Friday. It'll be 2 wins in a row for the Cougars.
All right, Coach Nevad, there you have it. We all think you're going to come out with the win this week, so we'll consider that our lock of the week. We almost never agree on anything. So, speaking of not agreeing on anything, coming up, our top 5 picks for the week. It's that time of the week to pick our top 5. We all love this part of the show. We often disagree. I will start off with my top 5. I have at number 5 the Melbourne Bulldogs. They are coming off a pretty big win versus Bayside, so therefore they've been bumped into my top 5. After them, I have the Palm Bay Pirates. Their lone loss of the season coming to Titusville, the Titusville Terriers, who I've always had in my top 5, so I didn't penalize them that much for that loss. Just ahead of them, I have the Titusville Terriers, who, as we've seen, have had probably their best season in the past, maybe a decade. And at number 2, the Cocoa Tigers, who I will be the first to say they could very easily be number 1, but I am going on evaluating teams in a vacuum in the 3 phases of the game. And as far as offense, defense, and special teams, as far as pure execution and just point production and points allowed and performance of special teams, I think the Vieira Hawks have a slight edge currently over Cocoa. Now, if they were to play head-to-head, I have a feeling that Coach Wilkinson and the Tigers would likely win that game. However, basing these teams solely on their individual performances, that's why I give Vieira a slight edge and put them number 1. You could almost call it a tie. I have a feeling that Orville will disagree with me, but what's the rest of your top 5 look like?
Well, my top 5 starts out with the number 5 position. Last week I had Titusville and MCC at that position. I dropped MCC out and I moved Titusville up a little bit. I'll tell you about that later, but like Steve had honorable mentions last week, 9 or 10 football teams, I've got a 5A and a 5B.
Okay.
My 5A this week, first time in my top 10, the Heritage Panthers. I believe, like Steve said last week, all they do is play good football. They score a lot of points. They beat a lot of good teams. And at the end of the night, you look at the scoreboard, and they're normally ahead. So I like the Heritage Panthers, and also. Great coach also. And also I like the Melbourne Bulldogs. A big win for the Melbourne Bulldogs and Todd Wilson beating undefeated Bayside last week. And that set a tone. I think they have beaten 3 undefeated teams coming in to play them. So you got to give a lot to Todd Wilson and the Bulldogs. At number 4, I have the Palm Bay Pirates. I had them there last week. They didn't do anything last week, but they're still a very solid football team. They play defense well, they move the ball well, and they beat up on a lot of people other than Titusville Terriers. Right. So I have Palm Bay at number 4. At number 3, the team I move into the number 3 spot from the number 5 spot I had them last week. They gave the Cocoa Tigers fits when they played them, and they also went to Palm Bay at home against the Palm Bay Pirates and beat them. And I think that the Titusville Terriers deserve to be number 3. And next week when we talk about this, we'll talk about the Titusville Terriers not only playing Cocoa tough, but beating Palm Bay, but also beating Merritt Island. So I have Titusville in the number 3 spot. And the number 2 spot, the guy that you had breakfast with last week, the coach down there, I have the Vieira Hawks at number 2. Big points last week they put up against Port Orange Atlantic, but Steve and I could put up big points against Port Orange Atlantic. So the game this Friday night, which will be the Friday night locker room game of the week, and we will allow you to come to the game, and we will pay your way if they won't let you in. But the thing you have to think about here is this is the biggest game I think that Vieira has played all year. This will be the best and the quality team that Vieira has played, and that will be the Melbourne Bulldogs. I'm going to go out on the limb here, and I think the Vieira Hawks will not be your number 1 team next week.
Okay. Yeah, there's a very real chance of that. I think you're right. The Melbourne Bulldogs are primed for this game, and they know how to take on the best competition. We've seen them do it. Steve, what does your top 5 look like?
Well, before we start on that, let's talk a little bit about your top 5.
Okay. I had a feeling this was coming.
In particular, your top 2. I love the fact that you said you evaluated Cocoa and Vieira in a vacuum. I think you've been living in a vacuum if you think Cocoa is not the number 1 team in the county. We'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes, but I actually have a top 9 this week.
Oh, top 9.
So we're going to be here a while.
I'm going to get coffee.
If you need to get some coffee, this is the time to do it.
Honorable mention, 4 teams, the Merritt Island Mustangs. They may be one of the top 5 teams in the county. I don't know, but we'll know more about them Thursday night. The MCC Hustlers, all they do is score a lot of points and win football games. I like them right outside of the top 5. The Melbourne Bulldogs, big win last week against the Bayside Bears. I don't know that they're one of the top 5 teams in the county, but they could be. I like the Bayside Bears, the team that they beat. So those are 4 teams that are knocking on the door of the top 5. Now, number 5 for me, the Heritage Panthers. If it were not for their loss early in the season to Palm Bay, I'd have them higher. But they only lost by a field goal to the Pirates. Heritage, good football team. We hope to see them in a couple of weeks. I've got them at number 5. Number 4, the Palm Bay Pirates. Here again, I would have them higher, but they were upset a couple of weeks ago by the Terriers. Palm Bay, Coach Burke has been doing it for years and years and years, consistently winners, and they're winning again this year. Titusville Terriers, Coach Lawrence's Terriers, the number 3 team in the county, with one of the top sophomore quarterbacks without question in Yusef DeReese, and give him Jaleel Davis as a running back. They're going to score some points and play defense. Now we get to the number 1 and number 2 team in the county. No question about it, 2 of the top teams, probably I think the top 2 teams in Brevard County. If they played 10 times, I don't know that either team would win 10 games. I don't think they would. But the Tigers from Cocoa would win the overwhelming majority of the times. I think if you line them up side by side, they're very close in personnel. I love Kingston as quarterback for the Hawks. I love Judson for the Tigers. You just go down the line, and they're quality players on both sides. But the Tigers have been doing it for so long, play with a tremendous amount of confidence. And like Orville has said, over the last few months, until somebody beats them in the county, I'm not ready to drop them to number 2. So I have the Hawks at number 2 and the Tigers at number 1. And I think after Friday night, it's going to be another. We're going to have this same discussion again, because I think Vieira will beat Melbourne Friday night, and we'll be talking the same talk again next week.
Well, that'll only, if the Hawks do prevail, that'll only help my argument, as they will finally have defeated a high caliber team, which Orville has been looking for. But I'm sure our number 1s will remain the same. Well, I can't believe we're already done with talking about Week 8. We'll be talking about Week 9 next week. Can't believe how fast this season is going. So for Orville Susong and Steve Wilson, this is Matt O'Hearn with Space Coast Daily. We hope to see you Friday night at the stadium.